Hello, this is day 13 of reading one canto of the Divine Comedy every day. We are on Inferno, Canto 13. I'll read through the Longfellow translation before doing some quick commentary. Not yet had Nessus reached the other side, when we had put ourselves within a wood that was not marked by any path whatever. Not foliage green, but of a dusky color. Not branches smooth, but gnarled and intertangled. Not apple trees were there, but thorns with poison. Such tangled thickets have not, nor so dense, those savage wild beasts that in hatred hold twixt Cecina and Corneto the tilled places. There do the hideous harpies make their nests, who chased the Trojans from the Strophades, with sad announcement of impending doom. Broad wings have they, and necks and faces human, and feet with claws, and their great bellies fledged. They make laments upon the wondrous trees. And the good master, ere thou enter farther, know that thou art within the second round. Thus he began to say, and shalt be, till thou comest out upon the horrible sand. Therefore look well around, and thou shalt see things that will credence give unto my speech. I heard on all sides lamentations uttered, and person none beheld I who might make them, whence, utterly bewildered, I stood still. I think he thought that I perhaps might think so many voices issued through those trunks from people who concealed themselves from us. Therefore, the master said, if thou break off some little spray from any of these trees, the thoughts thou hast will wholly be made vain. Then stretched I forth my hand a little forward, and plucked a branchlet off from a great thorn. And the trunk cried, why dost thou mangle me? After it had become embrowned with blood, it recommenced its cry. Why dost thou rend me? Hast thou no spirit of pity whatsoever? Men once we were, and now are changed to trees. Indeed, thy hand should be more pitiful, even if the souls of serpents we had been. As out of a green brand that is on fire at one of the ends, and from the other drips and hisses with the wind that is escaping, so from that splinter issued forth together both words and blood, whereat I let the tip fall, and stood like a man who is afraid. Had he been able sooner to believe, my sage made answer, O thou wounded soul, what only in my verses he has seen, not upon thee had he stretched forth his hand. Whereas the thing incredible has caused me to put him to an act which grieveth me. But tell him who thou wast, so that by way of some amends, thy fame he may refresh up in the world, to which he can return. And the trunk said, so thy sweet words allure me, I cannot silent be, and you be vexed not, that I a little to discourse am tempted. I am the one who both keys had in keeping of Frederick's heart, and turned them to and fro so softly in unlocking and in locking, that from his secrets most men I withheld. Fidelity I bore the glorious office so great, I lost thereby my sleep and pulses. The courtesan, who never from the dwelling of Caesar turned aside her strumpet eyes, death universal and the vice of courts, inflamed against me all the other minds, and they inflamed did so inflame Augustus, that my glad honors turned to dismal mournings. My spirit in disdainful exultation, thinking by dying to escape disdain, made me unjust against myself, the just. I, by the roots unwanted of this wood, do swear to you, that never broke I faith unto my Lord, who was so worthy of honor. And to the world, if one of you return, let him my memory comfort, which is lying still prostrate from the blow that envy dealt it. Waited a while, and then, since he is silent, the poet said to me, lose not the time, but speak, and question him, if more may please thee. Whence I to him, do thou again inquire concerning what thou thinkest will satisfy me, for I cannot, such pity is in my heart. Therefore he recommenced, so may the man do for thee freely what thy speech implores, spirit incarcerate, again be pleased to tell us in what way the soul is bound within these knots, and tell us, if thou canst, if any from such members e'er is freed. Then blew the trunk amain, and afterward the wind was into such a voice converted, with brevity shall be replied to you. When the exasperated soul abandons the body whence it rent itself away, Minos consigns it to the seventh abyss. It falls into the forest, and no part is chosen for it, but where fortune hurls it. There, like a grain of spelt, it germinates. It springs a sapling and a forest tree. The harpies, feeding then upon its leaves, do pain create, and for the pain an outlet. Like others, for our spoils shall we return, but not that any one may them revest, for 'tis not just to have what one casts off. Here we shall drag them, and along the dismal forest our bodies shall suspended be, each to the thorn of his molested shade. We were attentive still unto the trunk, thinking that more it yet might wish to tell us, when by a tumult we were overtaken. In the same way as he is, who perceives the boar and chase approaching to his stand, who hears the crashing of the beasts and branches, and to behold, upon our left-hand side, naked and scratched, fleeing so furiously, that of the forest every fan they broke. He who was in advance, "Now help! Death! Help!" And the other one, who seemed to lag too much, was shouting, "Lano, were not so alert those legs of thine at joustings of the topo." And then, perchance because his breath was failing, he grouped himself together with a bush. Behind them was the forest full of black she-mastiffs, ravenous and swift of foot as greyhounds, who are issuing from the chain. On him who had crouched down they set their teeth, and him they lacerated piece by piece. Thereafter bore away those aching members. Thereat my escort took me by the hand and led me to the bush, that all in vain was weeping from its bloody lacerations. "O Jacobo," it said, "of Sant' Andrea, what helped it thee of me to make a screen? What blame have I in thy nefarious life?" When near him had the master stayed his steps, he said, "Who wast thou, that through wounds so many art blowing out with blood thy dolorous speech?" And he to us, "O souls that hither come to look upon the shameful massacre that has so rent away from me my leaves, gather them up beneath the dismal bush. I of that city was, which to the Baptist changed its first patron. Wherefore he for this, forever with his art, will make it sad. And were it not that on the pass of Arno some glimpses of him are remaining still, those citizens who afterwards rebuilt it upon the ashes left by Attila, in vain had caused their labor to be done. Of my own house I made myself a gibbet." Next up, Dante and Virgil arrive at the forest of suicides, those who had committed violence against themselves. Now, to read this canto the way that Dante would have meant it to be read, the way that everybody would have understood it at the time, you have to know that mental health and knowledge of it was not really a thing back in Dante's day. He's presuming that each of these souls that took his or her own life did so freely, with completely free will, and did not repent. I think if you asked him, though, both Dante and the doctrines of the church would agree that if those two factors were compromised, that is, if the person taking their life was not in full control of themselves, was not exercising free will, or if there was a moment in this person's life, just a flicker of a thought before the very end, that they regretted what they were doing, that they wished they were not doing it, but it was physically too late to save his or her life, that also would remit responsibility. But anyways, he's not making those kinds of distinctions right now, which leads us to ponder instead what the contrapasso is here. Why are those who committed suicide now appearing as trees and bushes and shrubs? What is the purpose of that? I would say that it's because the dignity of the human person and of the body is something held tantamount in Catholicism. Human beings are created in the image and likeness of God, and to reject that, to cut off this thing that is one of the greatest gifts you have ever received intentionally, is to reject that gift. And so the souls who have rejected their human forms instead take on a different image, one which we are told will be capable of holding the bodies that they once had in front of them, where they can see that which they used to be, but chose to cast aside. Dante shows us souls who were faced with disgrace in life, who were faced with great pain, and in facing it and enduring it, chose to give in to despair. I had said before that it's good to have a good reaction to good things, and good to have a bad reaction to bad things, but it's one thing to be sad when something evil, something bad happens to you, and another to choose to cut off any possibility of it getting better, to believe in yourself. There is absolutely no way God can bring anything good from this. And we do see that kind of hopelessness in this steward of the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick, who we find as the first tree that they encounter. Lastly, when the two random naked sinners come crashing through the bushes with a horde of dogs on their heels, they incidentally break the branches off of a little bush, and Dante and Virgil go to question the bush to find out who it is. He is not named, but we only know that he is from Florence. Mark Musa speculates that perhaps it's just meant to be a representation of the city of Florence itself, who similarly is killing itself. That's it for today, though. I'll see you tomorrow.